more than a month, I've been coming to the floor to talk about student loan reform. I've said that to an outside observer, this is an issue that should have been an easy bipartisan slam dunk. I've noted that the proposals put forward by both President Obama and congressional Republicans have been strikingly similar, that we both agree on the need for permanent reform, and that we agree on the need to help all students and not just some of them. Yet here we are after the July 4th deadline, and Senate Democrats are still blocking bipartisan student loan reform. You have to ask yourself, why? Well, because they've prioritized politics over helping students. There are basically two different Democratic groups battling for supremacy here: a more responsible reform permanently faction and a more political campaign permanently faction. In the first group are the sensible Democratic senators who agree with both President Obama and Republicans that it's time to finally solve this issue, that Washington should actually help students and stop using them as pawns in a political chess match. They support the bipartisan compromise plan put forward by Democrat, Republican, and independent senators alike. Unfortunately, this faction is opposed and outnumbered by the campaign permanently Democrats. They're the ones who I suspect would actually prefer to see rates lapse so they can manufacture another campaign issue. And to hear the public musings of some top Democrats, you'd have to conclude that the Democratic leadership is on the side of the campaign permanently and against helping students. As the majority leader put it a few weeks ago, we're not looking for compromise. Majority leader said, we're not looking for compromise. Another Democratic senator and leadership boasted that a goal in this debate was to show, quote, the difference between the two parties on a key issue. I mean, this is just the kind of thing that makes people so cynical about Washington. Washington Democrats yell and wave their arms about the need for something, and then they appear to do everything possible behind the scenes to sabotage it, apparently so they can manufacture a politically convenient crisis. They're doing it on student loans, and they've been doing it with nominations, too. All week, it seems they've been breathlessly telling any reporter who'll listen that we've got a nominations crisis around here. A nominations crisis around here. It's really laughable that Republicans are holding up the president's nominees. To hear some of the over-the-top rhetoric, you'd think Republicans had blocked all of the president's second-term cabinet nominees. But then, of course, you'd be entirely wrong. Because the truth is, since the president swore his oath of office in January, the Senate has confirmed every single cabinet pick that's been brought up for a vote. Every single one of them. Let me repeat that. Every single one that's been brought up for a vote. They've all been confirmed. Many of them have been confirmed on unanimous or nearly unanimous votes. And just yesterday, the ranking Republican on the Environment and Public Works Committee announced his support for an up or down vote on Gina McCarthy's nomination to be EPA administrator. So there's no question she's going to be confirmed. So it's clear that facts are getting in the way of the Democrats' arguments, which is why they're forced to gin up this fake, absolutely fake nominations crisis. It's why we see them bringing out all the nominees who've been appointed to office either illegally or who are exceedingly controversial. Democrats themselves have delayed consideration of these nominees literally for months because the majority leader determines the timing. It's the Democrats who did that so they could pull them all out of the woodwork at the same time in the hopes the Senate would reject them. Democrats are out there just daring the Senate to do it. They want it so badly it appears to be their goal. And there's a reason for this. It's because the far left base seems to be getting fed up with the democratic process. The big labor bosses are sick of waiting for the special interest legislative kickbacks they must feel they're owed. And now they know that altering the rules of our democracy is the only way to get what they want. This isn't going to work. The facts show the truth. And the truth is that any crisis over nominations is a crisis of Washington Democrats' own making, one they've stirred up intentionally, an absolutely manufactured crisis by any objective analysis. As of last night, there were 140 nominees pending in various committees. These nominees are under the control of the majority, not us. And there are a little over 24 or so eligible for expedited floor consideration, many of whom Republicans have already said we'd pass unanimously. Why hasn't the majority leader called for votes on any of these folks? Clearly, if anyone is obstructing here, Mr. President, it's the majority leader. Because this whole conversation isn't really about making the Senate work better, and he knows it. It's all about his power grab. Well, let me just caution him again to think long and hard about what he's doing. As one of the most senior members of the Democratic Party said yesterday, deploying the nuclear option would mean breaking the rules to change the rules. Breaking the rules to change the rules. As the majority leader himself once said, and I quote, "It would ruin our country." We all know why. Once the trigger is pulled, there would be no limit to the consequences, not just for Republicans or for our country, but for Democrats too. They should think very carefully about the ramifications for them when a future Republican president makes his own appointments to the cabinet and to the federal bench. Look, we know Senate Democrats are not serious about implementing student loan reform. They've already demonstrated that by blocking just about every bipartisan effort to do so. But on the nuclear option, it is certainly my hope that cooler heads will prevail. I have to believe they'll choose the long-term health of our democracy and of their party over what frankly amounts to the narrowest of short-term political considerations. Pulling the nuclear trigger is not something the history books will look favorably on, and they know it.